Greetings, my excellent friend.
Welcome to Heavy Metal
History.
All right, listeners, welcome to this week's episode of the Heavy Metal History Podcast. My guest for this episode is Aggressor from the band Aura Noir. Thank you for doing this.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Yeah, so the one thing we kind of like to start off with, just to get the conversation going, and what we always like to hear about, is what were kind of your first influences of bands or records that got you into heavy metal?
I think some of the first stuff I heard that really got me off on it was Motorhead. I think I saw Motorhead on Swedish television when I was maybe around 10 years old.
Wow!
I saw one of those promo videos they did for Overkill and Bumbers and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I remember I was very, very fascinated with Lemmy and his style, and the fact that they were a trio, for example. The music, the double kick drums on Overkill and everything.
Did you ever get to see them live at all?
Actually, no.
Oh man!
In my later years, I've not been a very keen concert goer, you could say.
Yeah.
I'm not too much into concerts. More into listening to it in the privacy of my home, you know.
Yeah, no, I definitely relate to that myself. I'm getting to that point where it's like I don't really feel like going to shows anymore. It's it's fun every now and then, but yeah, it's more of a chore than you can't really enjoy it after a certain point in time.
Yeah.
So was Overkill like the first Motorhead record you bought, or did you buy like another record?
No, I bought the first one I bought was On Parole, actually.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. That was I found that record kind of strange because Overkill was harder in a way, you know,
mm-hmm.
and On Parole was more of almost just a rock and roll album.
Yeah, they did have those few records there where they kind of like went more towards rock and roll, and then it seems like later in their career they picked back up and just went towards like just that speed metal sound that they kind of invented a little bit in the first place.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of those bands, man, that I never got to see myself either, and I had an opportunity a couple times and I just never took it. Now in hindsight, it's like, well, damn, now I'm never ever going to get to see them.
Yeah, it's a shame, you know. It's same with me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like you said, it's a bit of a chore going to a gig, and afterwards you regret it, you know.
Yeah.
Too, you know.
So with kind of finding music when you were younger, was it did you go to like record stores, or were you like kind of in your friends group just kind of like trading out like bands that you guys found out about just to kind of like find different stuff?
Actually, when I was very young, I was more or less alone about being into metal in the area I grew up, and among my classmates and stuff, I was the only one into metal. So I had to just find it on my own. So I went to record shops and scoured through everything, listening to records and stuff. I had some other friends who were into metal, but they were into softer kind of metal.
Mm-hmm.
I picked up on the real hard stuff quite quickly. You know, I remember seeing Venom the first time on Sky Channel. You had this show called not Monsters of Rock, but that was on MTV. But they had what was it on Sky Channel? I don't remember. But anyway, I saw the video, and Slayer Hell Awaits from Combat Tour video. I saw those two in succession, and that was insane. It's just totally picked up on that stuff.
Yeah, I can imagine. That's one thing I'm kind of like jealous about is people that grew up in that era that got to see those bands when they first started out and to like discover that kind of music and those bands. Whereas like for me, you know, it was like by the time I found Slayer, it was, you know, they were doing like Diabolus and Musica, I believe, and then like God Hates Us All, so it was a little bit later for me.
Yeah.
But man, what a time.
Yeah, and it was so obscure, you know, so totally
Yeah.
obscure. So when you found this music, it was sort of your music and no one else's, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It became so felt like I owned it somehow. No one else was into it.
Yeah. So did any of that, how did that like help you start playing guitar? Was it because of heavy metal, or was it like other influences or somebody around you that kind of got you to start playing guitar?
No, actually, it was my great granduncle. He taught me how to play guitar. He just gave me a guitar and teach me some classical stuff. I remember I was maybe 8 or 9 years old. My mom had a guitar, and I was just playing it on my own whenever I wanted to. And, I never knew I was going to be a guitar player at all.
Mm-hmm.
I was also into bass, played bass, you know, and then drums. I thought drums was by far the coolest instrument. But after playing drums for a while, I kind of found it to be a bit exhausting as well. You know, it's a thankless job to be a drummer.
Yeah, I can imagine, especially in metal, if you're going for like blast beats and double kicks, you're basically running a marathon for 30 to 45 minutes a night, you know.
Also, it's like if you play perfectly, it's okay, and if you do one little mistake, everything is just terrible, you know.
That's
terrible.
True.
Yeah.
So kind of with that, like when you're playing guitar, like what kind of got you to start playing metal, as far as like with guitar and you know, Aura Noir and everything?
I remember I started playing my very first band. I started playing in I think '88, and this was this heavy metal kind of band. We did some Metallica covers and stuff, and we had some of our own songs, and we did, you know, some gigs at some youth clubs and stuff like that. I remember the name of the band was Ecstasy. So yeah, that was the best, and we changed the name to Wisdom after a while. But I wanted to play harder music.
Mm-hmm.
I remember I was playing bass and did vocals in that band, but I wanted to play harder music, and I hooked up with some people who did more of a thrash thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I played with them for a while. I don't remember much, but yeah, eventually I met Håvard and Vegard from the first Satyricon lineup.
Mm-hmm.
When we started Satyricon, I think that was 91.
Wow. Yeah, so how involved were you with like that early black metal scene there? Like, because I know it's like kind of a melting pot. Like everybody sort of knew each other, but I'm always really fascinated, not necessarily with like the drama, but like the bands that kind of fostered this whole genre, and it's kind of like they didn't know that they were doing it, you know. It's like you guys were involved with it, so it was like normal for you, but looking back on it, you guys invented like a whole genre of music, you know.
Yeah, we did, but it's I don't know. Back to the question, how involved I was. I think I felt. I didn't feel involved very much. It was. I was kind of like on the sidelines a little bit, doing our own thing.
Mm-hmm.
We weren't old enough to be a part of the whole Helvete shop and the whole, the whole core of the scene at that time in the early 90s was centered around the Helvete shop. We were too young for that.
Okay.
And so we weren't. I didn't feel involved in the scene until a little bit later, when I started going out on town and going out on Elm Street and stuff like that, and meeting people regularly. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that's something a lot of people don't realize or kind of forget. Is like all of you guys were really, really young when like that scene kind of started and first, got fostered, and it's evolved so much from that. But I'm kind of astounded that you guys were all like 16 to 19 years old when these bands were just like making some of the most extreme music possible at such a young age. It's mind blowing to me.
Yeah.
You don't really see a lot of younger kids these days doing that, trying to like push the boundaries of heavy metal or music in general these days. They all just want to jump on trends and do what's popular at the time.
Yeah, it's like everything that's possible to make has been made already. It's hard to push the boundaries these days.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was wondering too with like the new record a little bit. Is it feels like you guys have kind of taken like a backseat approach with like doing less with more, if that makes sense.
Yeah, we were very, very set on sounding like a trio.
Mm-hmm.
Since we are a trio, we wanted to sort of underline that we are a trio, so we recorded only one guitar.
Mm-hmm.
And even during the solos, you can hear only the bass in the background along with the drums. So we wanted to have this sort of minimalist approach to the sound spectrum.
Yeah.
It's like we're very used to in metal music. We're very used to this very saturated soundscape. That's just chock full of stuff going on all the time. We just wanted to go in a different direction and to do a little bit more simplistic, raw stuff in a way. We wanted it to sound a bit raw.
Yeah, which is nice, because I agree with your sentiment that a lot of records get a little overproduced and just like dense, with all this sound going on, and you're not hearing like the full soundscape of just the band itself. Which is, I think it's important, because how's that going to translate live when you have like, like two keyboards and like all this ambient stuff, or like three guitars layered on each other. It just doesn't come across the same live.
Yeah, and it's also a thing with the trio. It's like the personalities of the group come through much better.
Mm-hmm.
When you do it this way, it's more personal. You can hear the personalities in the play and the way of playing and performing the stuff. It's like early Venom did it the same way with on their early records in the early 80s. They did this same thing with only one guitar recorded, and you could hear Mantas and Kronos bass, and there was personality in it.
Yeah. So it's funny you make the Venom kind of reference here, because I feel like besides Venom, with Aura Noir, you guys are one of the first bands that decided to kind of like take black metal and infuse it with thrash metal, because I think up until that point, not a lot of whole bands were doing that. They were one or the other, and it seems like you guys are like, no, let's take these two things like Venom did and put them together and refine them a little bit more.
Yeah, we were always been very hung up on the first wave of black metal, as some people call it, or the first wave of metal that's before it was called black metal.
Mm-hmm.
even before it was this distinct genre. It was people even felt across speed metal, and yeah, we very heavily influenced by all that stuff, very much. Remember in the beginning, we sort of the most important thing to us wasn't necessarily to create something new. It was to me, it's speaking for myself at least. It was the feeling of actually playing the stuff while you were playing it.
Yeah.
That was important stuff. It wasn't so important to create something, really.
Well, also, I don't think you guys really knew at the time that you were doing that. It's only kind of after years have gone by that people were kind of like, oh, wow, they invented this whole new thing and nobody really knew it. They were just kind of doing it because it's what they felt, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting looking back, like, on that kind of era of music because, you know, you have, like, I guess new metal kind of starting around then, but not full force. You know, you have death metal kind of dying out, and power metal's blowing up, and black metal's kind of there, but it's not necessarily dying out yet. It's just, I don't know. 1998 is a very weird year. We're like, when we're going through it, like looking at it, and you guys are in there and in that conversation too. So it's just like, how is it? How did the metal scene look from your perspective at that time in terms of like what was coming out and what was kind of dying out?
I don't think we really cared. We were just still listening to the stuff from the 80s, and that was the important stuff.
Yeah.
And whenever we heard new stuff, it was if we liked it, it was sort of a surprise. You know, it was most stuff we didn't like. It was too much melody, too much production, too much pompous stuff going on in the black metal of that era. You know? And we sort of just dismissed everything. And we were. It was better to experience something old that we didn't hear before, you know, like Razor from Canada. I remember I was hearing them for the first time in the late 90s, you know, stuff like that.
I think that's always important too when bands keep that old sound alive. You know, because I think a lot of people, like I kind of said earlier, they're either jumping on whatever's like trendy or they're trying to do something new that's not quite working out because, you know, like you were saying, everything's kind of already been written and done. But there's those few bands that still keep that old sound going, and it reminds people that like this isn't going to go anywhere. Like you still have to remember thrash metal, you still have to remember black metal, death metal, whatever, because it's part of the roots of the genre. You know, I know it's all different genres now, but those were kind of the thrash metal especially was like the start of everything if you really look at it, and then, you know, Black Sabbath as well. So keeping those things alive is really important, and I think that you guys do a really good job of that. And you know, whether it's thrash metal or black metal or the fusion of the both, you guys really keep that alive, and you also do a good job of like still making it sound fresh, which is really hard to do in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it's about what kind of nerve is behind it. You know, if you're hungry, it will sound fresh even though it sounds old. Mm-hmm. And we were on this new record, we were very hungry for doing something like that.
Yeah, so you had an accident a few years back, and that kind of put the band on a sideline for a while. So I can imagine, like, coming back from that, you were really, like, ready to get something going, right?
Yeah, I remember the first release with Aura Noir after my accident in 2000. It was in 2008 with Heide's Rise album, and I remember this was Also, a big part of my recuperation, recovery. I mean, from the accident.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it was to me. It was my accident made me realize how important music is to me, and it's very important for me to work with it.
Yeah, because it's kind of like your outlet and your form of art that like it really brings you passion in life. So for you to be able to do that, and having an accident that keeps you from doing that, it's gotta like really just give you a lot more, I guess, not only perspective but also like inspiration to like get more music out there.
Yeah, it gives you something to fight for,
Yeah. So when you guys decided to start writing for this new record, how did that come about?
Slowly. We're it's important, at least for me, it's important for the creativity and not to rush it and not to force it.
Mm-hmm.
I think I prefer the way of working with music as if when you sort of wait for it to appear, rather than sit down and force it out. It's you wait until you just have to make some music, instead of treating it as a job or something like that. To me, that's a more pure way of writing music.
Yeah, I was gonna say that seems to me like a lot more genuine kind of way to get it done, because I think a lot of bands, especially nowadays, they're worried about like being on what's called an album cycle. They want it out like every year and a half, 2 years, so they can tour on it for like a year, and then they start writing another record, and how much of that gets like rushed because of worrying about being on that album cycle. And depending on the band, it could be a lot, could be a little, but I think like you were saying, taking your time and to really like perfect it, get it out there with like pure intentions is what matters more than rushing something out there.
Yeah, definitely. If you're in that cycle, you're doomed to make bad albums, and bad albums are hard to live with.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, as much as you're like still trying to like be genuine with your music, if you put out a bad album, the fans are gonna let you know that really quickly that it's a bad album.
Yeah, very much.
So it started a little bit slowly with the writing, but kind of once you guys got in that groove and you had the songs ready to go, was everything ready to go by the time you were like ready to record, or were you guys still kind of like perfecting things a little bit by the time like you were recording stuff?
Eventually, when we started recording, everything was ready, and it actually had been for a while. We tried to do the first recording of the album we actually did in Bucharest, because we had we live very far apart, the three of us in the band. Mm-hmm. And Blasphemy lives in Portugal, and I live in Oslo. OJ Apollyon, he lives an hour away from me. He used to live like 7 hours away from me, but anyway, we got together whenever it was convenient, whenever we were in the same country, whether it was because of a gig or festival or whatever, and it was convenient to get together. And we rented a house in Portugal, and we set up some equipment, and we jammed through quite a lot of material there. And then maybe a year later, we rented an apartment in Bucharest, and we borrowed a studio and rehearsed every day there for a week. We made some material there.
Oh wow!
And of course, all of us on the side back home, we're sitting, making riffs when we feel like it, so we have something to present and something to work with when we're gathered.
Yeah. So you guys are like working independently, but also like together when you can. Nice. So when you got in the studio, about how long did it take to record everything?
It was we recorded the drums in a studio near to Oslo, owned by the guy from Audio Pain, Sverre Dæhlie.
Mm-hmm.
And we recorded the drums there quite rapidly. I believe we did it quite well because we'd already had the experience of recording it in Bucharest, but something went wrong with the files or whatever. I don't remember. But something, and we could use it. So it was all quite fresh in our minds that time, and it was just Apollyon and me recording the drums. And Blasphemer recorded his guitars in Portugal.
Oh, nice.
And I recorded the bass back home, and we did the vocals in Apollyon studio, and we mixed in Apollyon studio. So,
I guess it's got to be the nice thing about modern technology is like being able to record those parts separately. Because whereas I assume like back in '98, everybody had to all be in the same studio and spot to record everything. Otherwise, good luck getting something made.
Yeah, it's actually a lot of people say that the internet and the internet and digital technology has ruined a lot for music, but it's also opened up a lot of opportunities to work with it in different ways.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it's really. I mean, it's ruined stuff in the fact that you can overproduce something to a ridiculous degree. But the fact that you can have people in different areas of the world and bring them together to make one cohesive like sound and band and song, that speaks volumes more than like worrying about overproducing something, I think.
Yeah, that's true. I was thinking about the illegal downloading and streaming and stuff like that. It ruins the economy of a band. But you can also, with new technology, you can you no longer need 100,000 British pounds to spend a week in an expensive studio. So you can work in creative ways.
Yeah, I find that a lot of people nowadays have like home studios, or they have just enough technology to make whatever they're writing or recording sound good enough. And then they just record everything on their own, then send it off to be mastered by somebody else, and it saves them like you were saying, like probably $100,000 more than it would have back in the day. But yeah, it's a really interesting point in terms of like the recording industry, because you also have bands that aren't relying on record labels anymore. And I mean, how important is that to you guys? Like as far as like getting something out there, like are you still relying heavily on a record label or just only slightly on a record label?
I think we're absolutely we need a label, of course. We wouldn't be able to do this by ourselves.
Gotcha.
It's important to have a label behind you, very much so. And I don't think we'd be able to release an album ourselves. It's a lot of work, a lot of aspects of it that you never think about as a performer,
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, especially when it comes to like distribution and getting the CD or whatever vinyl into the hands of the people that want to listen to it. That's more work than a band should have to do, I think.
Yeah, definitely. It's completely a whole world of stuff that you need to adhere to.
So with the new record, I noticed you guys took a more kind of just general like thrash metal approach to this one and kind of dialed back the black metal influence. Was that a conscious decision, or is it just kind of what happened in the process of writing the record?
It's funny you say that, because there's been a lot of so far the reactions has been very divided. Some people have said exactly the opposite of what you're saying. Other people have said that we've gone in a sort of avant-garde direction, and it's very strange to see how people, experience the album differently.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how much it says about the album, but to us, it's been same old, same old. We've been making the music we feel like making, and that's it, basically. And
Yeah.
It's up to other people to interpret it. So, but yeah, well, the thrash. To me, I honestly, I think it sounds that there are more sort of visible signs of black metal in the feel of the album,
Mm-hmm.
and of course in the riffing there's a lot of thrash metal going on. Of course, old school thrash metal, but there's also a lot of Motörhead and Venom in the music, and yeah. So. But in general, I think it's a black thrash album. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's still there for sure. I just noticed it was like, to me, it was dialed back a little bit, and it's interesting that you say that people are kind of interpreting it different ways, and I think that's always interesting to me as well, because you have so many different people listening to this one thing that you guys wrote and made, and general like criticisms or reviews or whatever you're gonna say about the record, they're all gonna be different. No two people are gonna agree on the same thing, or maybe a couple will, but I think that's kind of the beauty of music too, is how many people will interpret it or hear it different ways. It's always going to be open to that, and that's one of my favorite things about heavy metal in general too, is like how many different ways people are going to hear it and interpret it.
It was very funny. I saw a review the other day in a Norwegian magazine, and they say, "Stay away from this racket." And I thought that was very cool. It could have been something someone said about Venom in 1982.
True. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, I think people that want to write stuff like that are limiting themselves and limiting the people that will read that, because you should always give something a chance. You shouldn't just write it off immediately just because one person's opinion says it's not good.
Yeah, absolutely.
I can't do that.
You've done something, whether you've done it right or not, I don't know. You managed to do something when people have these kind of strong opinions about it. Either it's in a bad way or in a good way.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's kind of cool to do.
So the band's had a very long career. How do you besides like the accident kind of changing your perspective, but still, like, how do you find that drive to like want to be doing this after so many years? Is it just something that's in your bones that you're really passionate about and you never want to give up, or is it just like, I don't know, like, what is it to you personally, being in Aura Noir and making music?
To me, it's always I have some periods where I just need it's like I just need to make music. It's something I just have to get out of my system somehow.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not a conscious thing, really. It's not. It's more just an urge, you could say. But I really have an urge to make this kind of music. I think the same is for the other guys as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can do it, so we do it. We do it because we can.
Yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, you guys have been like staples in the genre for many, many years, and maybe you didn't realize it at the time that you guys were making something new, but the fact that you did make a new genre of music speaks volumes about like your status in the genre, whether you kind of realize it or not. But from my opinion, that's something to really like be proud of, I think, and awesome to know.
Yeah, to me it was the genre black thrash was a genre I never heard of before until like in the mid 2000s. You know? So to me it was a completely came as a surprise that we'd actually start this genre. But well, since people are saying that we did, okay, I can take credit, but no problem.
So, is there anything else that you would like to let our listeners know about the new record? Maybe like some little facts about it they may not know, or obviously I'll let people know when it's going to be released, which is like a week from now, right?
Yes, it's a week and 1 day, so
okay.
It's on the 7th. I could tell you about the album title.
Let's go into that.
It's called Aura Noir. It's the band name. We always thought the words aura and noir were sort of international words. Everybody knows what an aura is. Everybody knows what noir means. You know, so to us it was an international thing, an international name. But nevertheless, the French always seem to complain. You're writing it wrongly. Wrongly. It should be an E at the end of noir, you know. So we just took the opportunity to right the wrong, and then we released an album semi-self-titled with the right spelling. So that's what you get with the album title.
Very nice, to appease the French. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So actually that brings up one last thing, if I can, real quick. Was it ever a goal for you guys to kind of be able to break out of Europe and get into America, or did that just kind of happen naturally once the band started to make records and tour and everything like that?
It was sort of again not a conscious thing, but we did the first tour in America in 2009, I believe. That was without. Yeah, I was still in bad shape then, but apparently the feedback from the audience was really, really good, and there was these tons of new people you never met before that been into your music for years. So again, we were taken by surprise, you know, that following the States as well. Yeah, but it's just a positive thing to us, you know.
Yeah, I feel like people in America kind of take music for granted a little bit, and especially live shows, whereas like in Europe it's way different. Like people are so appreciative of every bit of music they get. It was really interesting to me to see the juxtaposition of the two places and like how they take into music. And it's I've always wondered, you know, when a band isn't from America and they tour America, you know, like what their kind of consensus is. So it's good to hear that it went over well, because you never know here, man. Sometimes people don't show up and they don't care, and they don't support music.
I think we were in America you appreciate it when people come from far away to play for you.
Yeah,
that's how I experienced it when we on our last tour in last October. That it was a very thankful audience and very wild crowds, you know, and I think it's much appreciated in the States when you come from, for example, Norway, like we do.
Yeah. That's good to hear. And I guess it's too also because you guys don't tour here that much. People are a lot more hungry for it. Whereas like if you have a band that tours the United States, you know, every 6 months, every 3 months, they get burnt out on it.
Yeah, definitely. And so does the band, you know.
Yeah. Oh yeah, big time. Yeah, I'm. We talked a little bit about not going to shows as much. I know Satyricon is about to do their North American tour, and that's going to be the last one. So I'm probably going to make an exception to go see them because I've never seen them live, and if they're never going to tour here again, it's my only chance. So it's probably going to be my one show for the year.
Yeah, you should definitely do that. It's going to be probably quite spectacular, I guess.
Oh yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
Well, that's pretty much all I got. I want to thank you again for taking the time to do this. I was really excited to get to talk to you, especially about Deep Tracts of Hell and the new record. I think you guys are definitely doing a good job of keeping what you do alive and still making something old sound new again. And a lot of bands struggle to do that. So I really hope people check out the record for sure.
Yeah, thanks for saying that. It's been a pleasure being on your show.
Be excellent to each other.
And party on, dudes!